Good morning, Instagram. We're doing another live today. We've got just a few more days left in Tom Jean Webb's exhibition, A Mother and Her Son. So I'm just gonna, as I always do, pan you around while I invite Tom in to join. Hey everybody, good morning. Hey Tom.
Hey, right. How's it going?
Good. Good
Yeah,
morning.
good morning.
Thank you for talking to me today. We've got just a few more days left in the show, so it's great timing. It's a Thursday
Yeah,
before a Saturday close. Um, so maybe what I'll do is I'll pan you around, and if you could just introduce yourself and introduce the exhibition title, and then maybe we can talk about why you chose that exhibition title.
yeah. I am from Jean Webb. I'm an artist originally from London and live here in Austin now. This is my third show with Ivista, and I think that this show is a development in my artistic practice, and I think people would be, surprised by some of the new work to some degree. And in terms of the show itself, if the last day is this Saturday, so I'm going to be in the space, I think from say 11 till about 2 o'clock.
Awesome.
If anyone, yeah,
That'll be great.
yeah, and I can chat more in person to people, about the show and if they had any direct questions and stuff.
Yeah, and if you're watching this live, please do comment a question if you have anything that comes up that we don't cover. So the show's called A Mother and Her Son. What was the inspiration for the title?
Well, so basically the show, a broad scope is the idea of sort of being present in, where one finds themselves, and in particular with nature or the natural world, to find an idea of sort of groundedness. And that was a product of sort of this big, longer journey that I've been on. And so I really wanted to reference this personal journey, but also create a title that I felt like everyone could relate to. For me personally, I was really trying to understand where I was or where I found myself at the end of this big long journey that I felt had really started since childhood. And obviously a big part of my life and that journey has been my mother and the relationship we have. And so I really wanted to celebrate that. And also talk about, I guess ultimately where I feel like our relationship with the natural world is at the moment, or speak to how I would like it to be, and also in that understanding that the way that we treat others or the natural world is actually a mirror on how we treat ourselves. So I wanted to talk about those subjects in a positive way, or try and sort of portray a way of being that is positive, and I wanted the title to reflect that, and just respect who we are and where we come from and where we live.
Yeah. So referencing sort of your own mother and then Mother Earth, and
Yeah.
the son in Mother and Her Son is SUN, which I think is clever and just fun and playful like the rest of your work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
So the sort of what I would describe in this show as like the title image, it's just a perfect painting for the show, is a mother and son. Who is this? What was the inspiration?
So that's my good friend Liz and her new son Sebastian. So I knew that I'd read A Mother and Her Son in a book, and it was SON, and I knew that I wanted the show to be about humans' relationship to the natural world. And so I, obviously changed it to the SUN. But I knew that in the show I wanted to have one painting that was figurative, one portrait painting, because I wanted to reference that idea that that humans ourselves are part of that relationship with nature or the wild, and and the title came to me, and then I realised my good friend Liz had just had a son, and so it felt very natural to ask her to be the central figures of the show, and a lot of I mean, I love embracing people that I know or places that I've been, or little personal references into my work, because as an artist, what we make is a sort of biography of our lives, and it's always very special when you can put people in that mean a lot to you into the work. It adds there's another level of sort of personal touch to the creative process. So, in some of my paintings, a lot the paintings that will have stuff carved into the trees will be that found in the outside world. I've sort of copied them from the trees that have actually been carved, but I'll also add some of my own little notes or little clues into the trees, because I think it's important that, you access your own personal life and apply it to the paintings as well, or the work that you make on some level. But yeah, so, because Liz is such a great friend, and since I've moved here to Austin, she's been such a strong part of my life here, really,
Yeah.
to be able to sort of honor that in this painting, as well as be able to speak to the broader theme, what the show is about.
It's a really sweet painting. You can tell by looking at it that, this is a person who means something to you. The other thing about this show, if you've been following Tom's work over the past 3 years, and I've shown you now 3 times, your work is still very much your own, but has changed a lot. What has that journey been like?
Fun.
Yeah.
Hard.
Nice.
I mean, ultimately I get to make art, and that is amazing. That's the thing I love doing. So even when it's hard, it's still special. I wouldn't want to be doing anything else. I feel incredibly privileged, and I try to really sort of develop and consciously promote that idea of fun in the process, to remain playful and positive about what I'm doing. It's a huge part of making work for me. And it means that, and ultimately it means that I remain open to thought and reflection, and being able to sort of understand what I'm doing. And I feel like in that process, what I make is more instinctive and honest. So yeah, the journey's been fun, I guess, ultimately. And it's about being more playful. It's about understanding. It's about understanding what I'm doing, but giving bigger and bigger spaces to be playful and to experiment or find the unknown, as opposed to being so planned at the beginning. And it's making that window of play bigger and bigger, basically.
Yeah, I mean, and for what it's worth, your previous work has been very successful. You built a large following of your work. People loved it, and I just have to say how brave it is to be able to continue your journey, continue to evolve. A lot of people get stuck in what, quote, works for their viewers, and you just keep giving us more and more. Savannah and I always talk about the fact that it feels like every new painting that you make shows up, and we're like, wow, how did you do it again? How is this my new favorite painting? And it's really hard to pull off, but clearly your joy and your drive comes through. Like this is not strained work for you. This is something that you're really enjoying, and it shows. There are a lot of different techniques in each painting. What is sort of like the process?
I mean, the process is somewhat similar to what it's always been as a kid. It's just to sit down and sketch, just sketch out ideas, play with ideas, and then take it to canvas. But ultimately, the process is becoming less planned. I mean, I think the way that I structure a painting, or the way that I want this painting to work as like a piece of space, is kind of the same. But it's about how I sort of decorate or fill in that space, or with the actual process of painting is the thing that's really evolving, that I'm really excited by. The technical kind of application and performance of painting, I think, is the thing that's really changing. I think, my inspiration points, I think, are still very similar. It's in the way that they're changing in a sort of consistent pattern, in that the work was very much about this journey and coming to America, and now it's about understanding where one is in one moment, being grounded and learning to observe the world around them, and spending that time and having that greater sense of presence and looking around oneself. I think that's having that's changing the work. That's a huge part of it. And so therefore, the amount of time I'll spend with one piece is changing. My presence with that piece of work is getting greater, and therefore the relationship with that painting is getting greater. And so therefore, the way I interact with it, the way I touch it, the way I paint it is becoming richer and over a longer period of time, and leaves more room for me in the work, I think, hopefully.
I always found it fascinating that when I first started to get to know you, you talked about this idea that you were really stripping things away, and you were interested in building your sort of the tools in your tool belt back up from the ground up. What was that process like? What, sort of inspired you to do that?
Well, I think ultimately there was a point in time where I was making work that I wasn't enjoying. It was very technically driven. It was coming from a place that ultimately, not to go too deep, but I was quite a depressed person, and I think that the work wasn't giving. I didn't have joy. I wasn't giving the work joy. It wasn't giving me joy back, and I realized that I loved art and I loved making art, and something wasn't working, and I really decided that I had to start the whole relationship again. And I stripped it right back down to it'd be as minimal as possible, to try and just kind of allow myself to be a student of what I was doing again, and ultimately just completely try and lose my ego. And so I started with line. I just decided to work out how I use line again, and then over the years I spent the time trying to build it back up. Adding the color, like what's my relationship to color? Why do I like to use this color? And then it's materials. We're starting to add the pastels and mark making, and the subject matter again. It's like, what's the subject matter mean? So how does one find joy in their creative process? How important is the process? How important is the end product? Just re-examining everything about the relationship to the work, and I feel like at this point I feel like I'm finding a very good relationship towards my art practice, and I'm really enjoying what I'm creating, and so ultimately it's been a worthwhile journey.
I think it's amazing how many different techniques you've really seamlessly and cohesively put into each canvas. I mean, there's so much work and so much improvisation in this work. It's just like this flower right here. I honestly, I come into the gallery and I look at this flower a lot because there's almost nothing there.
Yeah.
But you know exactly what it is in the context. The leaf on the right side, it's really just very subtle shades. It's like pure painting. It's what I love about painting.
Yeah. And I'm still learning about painting. That is something that I really am excited about. Is the idea of being a student of painting and art, and whether that's in my own process and what I'm creating, or whether it's going to look at other artists and enjoying what they're doing as well. It's like being open to the idea that one is learning. You know, it's not art for me. It's not about showing people what I know anymore. It's about trying to discover what I don't. It's a completely different role. You know, flipping it on its head for me.
This wall is pretty special because
Thanks.
they're all
Yeah.
flowers here,
Yeah.
and just close-ups. What somebody might describe as really traditional medium, just still life.
Yeah.
What made you want to work back into this world?
I think, you know, somewhat just what I was talking about there, being a student of art and looking at art history and understanding this sort of lineage that I'm a part of, and you know, fully sort of embracing that, and understanding that there is kind of metaphors and themes and symbols that exist throughout art history for a reason, and they exist as a platform for as an artist to be able to sort of communicate. But also, you know, in terms of flowers, you know, I felt like I'm on a personal note. You know, I grew up in a family that we sold flowers. That was our history. That's my childhood history. Is we sold flowers at markets, and I, as a kid, sold flowers door to door in daffodil season. And that's a really lovely memory of mine. Is getting up in the morning sometimes and going to the flower market in London and buying all the flowers to you know, to have on the stalls. And so just having this very sort of personal connected relationship to flowers. And when I was at university, I worked on a flower stall, selling flowers and delivering flowers and setting it up. And so, you know, it just feels like these are something that's part of my life, and I'm embracing that, enjoying it. And also embracing this idea of trying to create beauty, you know, kind of leaning into that, understanding that's something that I enjoy, and something that I want to do and promote, is creating beauty in the world, and hopefully something that's, you know, a positive message in that aspect. I did read something recently that I think resonated for me. It was about an idea of radical serenity, and you know, and for me that kind of exists as an idea of a peaceful protest. You know, it's like the idea that one can achieve or look to achieve a sense of personal mental health, and in doing so, they're doing something quite sort of radical. You know, the idea that you're really going to absorb looking after yourself. And I feel like, you know, painting flowers and painting the natural world is sort of my way of doing that. And hopefully that that idea or that kind of concept can sort of be communicated to others through the work that I make, that we take a stand by looking after our own mental health. And the other part is that me and my wife have really been tending to our garden for the last year and a half, and I've witnessed this, what was a sort of derelict space, kind of blossom into this really beautiful space. And then, you know, we had planted some flowers and sown some wildflowers, and then, you know, then also buying flowers to put inside the house. And the three different types kind of got me thinking about, yeah, I guess our relationship to nature again, how we use them, how we exist them, or how we decorate our lives with them. You know, how we kind of, you know, we give flowers for love, we give flowers for death. You know, we kind of mark these occasions in our life and decorate them with flowers, and so we have this kind of history of flowers that I think is super interesting. I mean, the middle painting there, the flowers that I set up as a still life, I set them up in a drinking glass rather than a vase, because I wanted to, I wanted to sort of talk about that relationship that we are the same as flowers. We drink from the same cup. You know, we need the same water.
There's one last piece that I've been sort of saving too, for towards the end of our conversation, this cutout piece, which is
Yeah.
something completely different than what you've ever made before. What what inspired you to make this, and how did you make it?
Well, I think ultimately, you know, I am a painter, but I'm always interested in the space that painting holds, and the like, whether it's implied space or real space, and what that does for the work or the image, and also what that does for the performance of the viewer. You know, the way that we interact with it and the way that it changes the work. You know, the idea that you can have, yeah, stretching the parameters of what a 2D image is, and what point it becomes 3D or physical. So, you know, and then you know, taking some of that tradition with the you know, the flowers and stuff. I wanted to make work that was just more physical, I guess. And we have been working on, and still are working on, creating the physical line drawing sculptures.
Hmm.
That's just a whole process that requires another party to create that, which, you know, requires some sense of patience. And but what's kind of good is during that period I was able to, you know, merge these worlds where I wanted to make these physical drawing sculptures, and then I was doing these paintings, and I realized that there was a language where they could join in the middle, and so that created these sculptural paintings.
Yeah, this has still got all the same richness of your you know, rectangular canvases, because it is painting on canvas, right?
Yeah, so it's cut out of oak laminate, and then then painted on canvas that I attached to it, basically.
Yeah. And then finally, you know, you've talked about being present with nature and being playful. Scattered around the room are just these little gems. When did these get created, and like, what is your relationship to these?
Well, they've been created over the last year, I guess, year and a half, and you know, I like to do stuff in the studio that I don't fully understand what it is. It's purely about being playful. You know, it's as simple as, like, I like rocks. What do I want to do with a rock? And then I'm constantly buying or playing with new materials to see what, you know, see if it can work in what I'm trying to create. And almost sort of unconsciously started sort of decorating these rocks with it. It felt incredibly childlike, you know. And a lot of what I'm trying to do is about being a kid making art, being the kid that I was that was making art. Because, you know, as we grow older, we adopt these characters that are sometimes forced upon us to survive, or, you know, to succeed, or to cope, or and then and sometimes those things work, or they work for a period of time, and then you have to shed them. And so, you know, ultimately, I'm always trying to maintain a healthy sense of who I was and who I really am. And so, like, making work that's really playful and fun is kind of my way of doing that. But also, it felt like those pieces feel like the most stripped down version of what the paintings are about. You know, they feel like the sort of origins of what the work is about. It's being playful and decorating nature, and trying to have a relationship with the natural world, and on one level, like, loving it, and but also on another level, trying to sort of honor it by creating art about it. You know.
Yeah.
Um, so, you know, that's what the work feels like. And then, of course, I started thinking about the idea that maybe the origin of art to some degree was like cave paintings, you know, and this is my little, like, part of that lineage, is to take the rocks and start putting this this putty on top of it. You know, it's like another version of that, and which I'm really interested. You know, like, I have this theory about, like, landscape painting, that it's a really, feels like quite a very honest way of creating artwork that isn't about humans, but it's about humans' relationship with the world, the planet. You know, like, a lot of the Renaissance art is driven and funded by people who wanted their portrait painted, or you know, were, like, trying to sell the story of the Bible or something. You know, it feels far too human and too ego driven. And I feel like the history of landscape painting is about looking outside of ourselves, and it feels a lot healthier, I think, much art, what art is.
Yeah,
That's
as a viewer, I mean, not only can we feel your own interest in painting these things and the playfulness that you put into making these things, but I think it sort of forces us to look longer and pay attention and be present with the work because there's so much detail, there's so much, you know, little magical moments in each canvas. So it's really a beautiful show. Um, I'm gonna pan around one more time. This exhibition is on view just till Saturday. It's been up for nearly 5 weeks. If you've been thinking to yourself, it's up for 5 weeks, I have all the time in the world, you don't anymore. So come in, see the show. You've got a few more days. Tom will be here Saturday.
yeah. I'm going to be there from 11 till 2. Uh, so I would love to chat with anyone who wants to come by.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time,
Awesome.
Tom. It's awesome talking to you. It's awesome to have your third solo exhibition in the space. Thank you.
Thank you.
Uh, It's somehow my favorite one so far. So,
Good. Hear it.
all right, have a great day. Thanks, everybody.